What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another Big Men on Campus college basketball conference tournament preview. We're getting started. March is here, and it's time to talk already college basketball conference tournaments. It's Sunday, March 3rd, 2019, and beginning Monday, March 4th, we get our first conference tournament. It's the Atlantic Sun, and I got my boy Andy from the Deep Dive Podcast to check in. If you know Andy, you know he's a big low mid-major fan. I said to him, hey, listen, we're going to do Atlantic Sun. We're going to do a couple others. He was all in. Andy, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. I'm feeling good. I'm pumped. It's not quite March yet, but it's like the appetizer course for the big dance. I love these. I love all these tournaments. It's nice because it's always rolling. Like I was talking about this with Whale the other day. It's like once you start to lose some teams, you get into the deeper quarterfinals, semifinals, all of a sudden another tournament starts. So it's awesome.
Yeah, no, you're totally right. And that's what's so great about it. They're just kind of a domino effect. They just keep going and going and going. And you're going to have all wall-to-wall basketball over the next month. It's one of the great times of the year, and we're happy to have you here. We're going to go first through the Atlantic Sun. Basically, on each video, it's going to be kind of like last year to all the listeners out there. We're going to give a kind of a favorite, the sleeper, maybe a team to look out for that you can keep your eye on. And we get started here in the Atlantic Sun. And obviously, Andy, this being a smaller tournament, the higher seed's going to host. The highest seed would be the Lipscomb Bison. Obviously, many people, even casual basketball fans, almost know who Lipscomb is at this point. Casey Alexander, terrific coach, really runs that motion offense as good as anybody, really, other than his predecessor, Rick Byrd over at Belmont. Little news and note here, no Stetson. So Stetson, they were the worst team. They're kicked out.
Kicked them out.
Yep, no Stetson this year. And how about the job that North Alabama did in their first year to find a way to sneak in? That's pretty impressive by Tony Puglio's team to find a way into the tournament. And look, I don't think any of us are going to say anything crazy here, Andy. I mean, the sleeper might have interest, but look, the favorite's Lipscomb. You and I both know that. You were on them many this year. I was on them a lot. I really loved them in the first half. And I'll tell you right now, if you're betting on Lipscomb, they're one of the best teams in the country in the first half at home this year. That's one of the better metrics and more underrated metrics that this group's going to have. You look at it in the country, 16th in the country in first half margin. They really do a nice job at getting the job done right away. Scoring margin's terrific as well. They're beating teams on average by about 12 points a game. So, look, Andy, it's very simple for me. I mean, they only lost one time at home, and that was to Liberty. They're first in all the major categories. They're 65th nationally and officially. I think, to be honest, Andy, and I'm sure you'll agree, I think it'd be kind of a sad thing if Lipscomb doesn't win this tournament. I'd be actually quite choked up about it.
I want to see them not only win the tournament. I think we've both said this, and I've other smart people I talk basketball with. They're the kind of team that can win.
Oh yeah,
they could win a couple games. They're the kind of team that absolutely has a 10. So it would kind of be a shame to see them out. It's tough because it for sure it's a one bid league. It's not. We needed any chance of a 2-bid league. Lipscomb needed to be probably almost undefeated and then maybe get upset. And even that, I don't think they were going to get an at-large bid. So, yeah, this is winner in. So if Lipscomb screws it up somehow, they'll probably be sitting at home, that would suck bad. And we haven't seen prices yet, outright prices for the tournament, but we both kind of maybe can 275 minus 300 to win it all. That's probably going to be what we see coming out. It's going to be tough to find value in an underdog here for the any sort of, tickler bet or maybe a long shot. Like I said, what was it? North Florida kicked their best player off the team and they won like 6 straight, which he was there for part of it too, but they're kind of playing hot. But even then it's just, Lipscomb's got a pretty easy draw as far.
Yeah, I mean,
it's going to be awful tough. It's going to be awful tough for anyone to take them down.
Yeah, you look at you mentioned North Florida, and that's obviously an interesting one. Losing a guy like Noah Horsher, that's a big loss. And I like your point. They did win 6 in a row coming into the tourney, but I think it's important to mention the only win that I think was a good win was against Liberty. The other, you beat North Alabama, Kennesaw, NJIT, Jacksonville, and Stetson. Without Horsher, I just don't see it. I think you mentioned the 3-1 price. I think that's pretty fair. In fact, I mean, sometimes you got to be willing to lay prices. I mean, it's not sexy to lay a 1-3, but it's kind of like boxing sometimes. These conference tournaments, there's pretty simple layups. I'd be real surprised if Lipscomb doesn't win this tournament. I think the one team that I'd have some interest in as a sleeper, and I'll probably play, is Florida Gulf Coast. I think Florida Gulf Coast is an interesting team. You're coming into this tournament, they've won 3 in a row. They would get Lipscomb in the second round, I believe. And you look at Florida Gulf Coast, I mean, you talk about a team that's really kind of changed their stripes. Under Joe Dooley, they were not a good defensive team. This year under Michael Fly, they've been very good defensively. And I think that's one way to maybe combat Lipscomb. This team, for what it's worth, was very good inside the three-point arc. They were terrific as far as efficiency. And they do a nice job at kind of turning you over, forcing you into miscues. Maybe, look, if they could find a way to somehow beat Lipscomb, I think they're going to have a real good chance, obviously, to win this tournament. But I almost like to get a sleeper in the bottom half of the bracket, kind of away from that number 1 seed, as opposed to getting them early. But again, Andy, you're going to have to beat them at some point. And you look at Lipscomb this year. Florida Gulf Coast actually beat them once, and then lost by 8 in another one in Lipscomb. So there's not a lot of teams that beat Lipscomb this year. Florida Gulf Coast can say that they did beat them. Pretty, beat them by 6, played well defensively in that game. I think they would be the only other team. The reason I like also Florida Gulf Coast, Andy, is the amount of transfers they brought in. You look at a guy like Shadrach Kashmir. He was at Iona, was terrific for Tim Cluse. Hanif Cheatham at Marquette. They've had all sorts of guys that have come in and really been able to give them some good minutes. So, obviously we'll agree. Lipscomb the favorite. I think you can bet that with confidence. Maybe a sleeper, FGCU at 9 or 10 to 1. Other than that, I mean, any other just pretty straightforward here.
Yeah, just from how I bet, I use a lot of numbers. I'm model based on a lot of I bet a shitload of underdogs, which obviously isn't going to work in some of this. But I have taken some of my stats and piled it together a little differently. Instead of just comparing 2 teams playing each other like I've been doing all year, I've tried to get like a composite number for each team in the tournament and looked at it. And, obviously Lipscomb and Liberty are way up at the top, but my numbers do kind of agree with you as far as everybody who's not Liberty and Lipscomb. It does like Florida Gulf Coast. They have some nice metrics, decent defensive numbers according to, everything I'm showing here as far as defensive efficiency. It's kind of funny. It kind of like Stetson still, even though they finished 9th and won't get to play in the tournament. But yeah, Florida Gulf Coast or New Jersey Tech, they have some decent numbers. I still think it's funny that New Jersey Tech is in this pretty much Florida conference, but such is life. But yeah, Florida Gulf Coast, if you could get double digits, it wouldn't be the worst to, put a real small stake on there. It'd be awesome if you get them into the final.
Yeah, you get a great opportunity to maybe get some of your money out. One betting portion I would like to just mention with this conference, Kennesaw State, Al Skinner's team. Obviously, Al Skinner decided he's going to walk away from the university after this season. It's safe to say tomorrow will be his last game. It's almost downright unfair how bad this team was offensively this year. And one thing I think I'm sure your model will mention this. You look at point distribution for Kennesaw State. They're number 2 in the country as far as dependence on the 2-pointer. 59% of their points come from inside the 3-point line. Only 20.3% come from the 3-point line. They're the second worst 3-point shooting team in the country. The only other team that's worse was Rhode Island. Rhode Island was historically bad from 3. This Kennesaw team, I think, is going to obviously tomorrow be big underdogs. I would probably think 24, 25-point underdogs.
Yeah.
They're really bad. You got to figure Lipscomb shouldn't have any trouble winning this by 30 or more. This is a big-time game. You want to set the tone early in this tournament. Just know how truly bad Kennesaw is. It'll be interesting if they try to sneak behind the back door with Al Skinner in his last game. But Kennesaw's really bad. You could make the case they're not even worthy of being in this tournament.
Yeah, maybe a Lipscomb -12 first half, something along those lines, because they should be up by 15, 20 at half. You talk about the offense, like just part of the numbers I've thrown together for everybody, and I've only run a couple conferences so far, but I'm looking at the other conferences I've run, and out of like the 30-some teams I've put through this, Kennesaw by far has the worst offensive efficiency metrics that I can throw together here. I mean, they're pretty bad. It is going to be probably a bloodbath, which such is life. That's going to be they're going to see a lot of that in the next few weeks as you see some of these lower seeds have to take on, the top seeds in these little tournaments.
Yeah, one last thing. It's funny you say that for the first half, because if you go back and look at the two games they played against Lipscomb, they actually were quite close. They were down, I believe, I want to say 5 and 8 in those games, and then in the second half they were just kind of boat raced. But for whatever reason, Lipscomb struggled against Kennesaw in the first half. So maybe being at home, this obviously being a tournament, and Kennesaw really just realizing their season's over, we might see something different. But there you have it. Atlantic Sun, Andy and I both agree. It's Lipscomb or nothing. You can't go any other way. Lipscomb will be in the tournament. I agree. I think they'll win a game or two in the tournament. For sleeper, maybe if you can get double digits on FGCU, take Dunk City, maybe 10-1. I think there's a decent shot there. I'll have a half a unit on it. Andy, we're going to go to the Patriot League. That'll be in another video. We will jump there now. As always, make sure you like, subscribe, and comment. If you're new around here, make sure you subscribe to the channel. This is your headquarters. We will have a preview for every single conference tournament, all 32. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.